Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Daniel McGuire here. Sorry I haven't uploaded in a little bit. I've been very busy figuring out post-graduation life, examinations for accreditation. So I've been just really busy, but I'm trying to really get back into it. Trying to really upload a couple more videos before the end of the year, build the following, continue to grow the channel. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about how to prepare for the PE exam, or the Professional Engineering Licensing Exam, for state accreditation for an engineer, and trying to get, being able to have the stamp and have more responsibilities when you do submit plans to the city if you are going to use your own seal, and how to really just prepare for the exam itself, because it is a very hard exam. So with that, not wasting any more time, be sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's get to it. So the first piece of advice that I could give you is just kind of, in general, give yourself ample enough time to study for the exam. I think you can register for the exam about 4 months before the actual exam date. So try to enroll in the exam and start studying, I would say, about 10 to 8 weeks out, just so you give yourself enough time to really review all the material and you're not really crunching at the last minute. The last maybe week or so, you really shouldn't be studying too much material for the exam itself. You should really just be reviewing concepts, relax. A lot of the time that you're going to be spending is going to be just killer on your brain, especially if you are working a full-time job concurrent with studying. The last week, you should really take it easy. So do a lot of the studying initially at the front end, 8-10 weeks back out, so that way you can really relax the week leading up to it, because it is going to be a very stressful time leading up to the exam itself. So the way the exam is formatted, you could take a specialization exam. For example, with civil engineering, you could take the water resources and environmental exam, you could take the structural exam, the transportation exam, the construction management exam, and then I know with mechanical, you could take the HVAC, you could take the plumbing. There's different specializations within the exam category that you're taking it under. So really consider, playing to your strengths. If you studied a very hefty amount in structures, then take the structural exam. If you did a lot more water resources, take the water resources one. But if you're kind of in between and you did a little bit of water resources and a little bit of transportation, for example, just kind of play your ear what you enjoyed more, because that's the material you're really going to be studying the most, and you're really going to go in depth with the material. It's going to be a lot of content. So really make sure that at least you enjoy the material, because you're going to be, again, like I said, very deep into it. So don't try and study a material that you really aren't familiar with at all, because you're going to have no background and you're pretty much going to be relearning 4 years worth of an engineering degree in 8 to 10 weeks. It's just not going to be possible. So again, play the specialization to your strengths, so that you have an idea of what you enjoy. And if not, what you do at work, maybe you do water resources at work, but you enjoy transportation and you have a very strong transportation background, you can do that. The exact specification for the exam that you take and pass doesn't really dictate what you can and can't do. In the licensing and agreements which you do go into contract with NCEES and your specific state board, you aren't really tied into what you tested for and specialized for. It's what you specialize for once you start working. So consider that when you also consider, what am I going to do? Because at work I do transportation, but I feel like I could really pass the water resources one. Play that by ear, obviously, but consider what you understand the best and what's going to be able to help you facilitate to pass the exam, your first couple of tries if you need that. So the next bit of advice that I could suggest is, if you are really stressed out and you've been a couple years removed from college and you don't really understand a lot of the content and you're struggling with what to choose, what to really go for, consider enrolling in a course or a prep course for the exam. I did that and it was very helpful. A lot of the content is so far reaching, it's so broad and so vast, that you really need to hone in on what the exam board really dives into and what they really want to look for in, the exam specifications. So you could be doing hydrology, for example, and you would be like, well, hydrology is an entire 2-year course in college, but the board is only going to ask 5 to 7 questions on it. So is it really worth diving into a whole year's worth of content just to really get 5, 6, 7 questions out of it? So that's where the course really, helps you, because they specialize and they narrow down exactly what you need, and they give you all of the resources that you are going to require for the exam if you're taking it paper pencil. So consider that as well, enrolling in a course. It's a very, very useful tool. It is a bit expensive, but it definitely pays its way out when you pass the exam, and it's totally worth it if you are able to really just get through it the first time or two. Another bit of exam advice that I could give is definitely, ask your coworkers, ask your peers, ask anybody that that's taken the exam and passed it or has taken the exam in the past. They can give you a few pointers and a few examination tips and tricks. For me, it was, the course. I talked to a coworker of mine and he suggested enrolling in a course. I did that, and, it paid dividends in the end. And another piece of advice that's lesser known is kind of, take a little bit of padding on your seat, because you're going to be sitting in fold-up chairs for 8 hours and you're going to get uncomfortable. Or take your own water, take your own watch, stuff like that you don't really think of is like kind of very important for psychological reasons once you're in the exam. So really adjust, what you're going to do, what you're going to take based off of what your coworkers or your peers who've taken the exam before are willing to give you, as well as if they have extra resources. I know one of my coworkers gave me a few extra test resources that I was able to use for studying for the exam. So it's a very, very important tool that you have if they're willing to give you a lot of these resources and whatnot. Now, the last bit of advice that I could give you is definitely study, put your heart into it, really grind for 8 to 10 to 12 weeks if needed. And especially if you're enrolled in a course, you're going to be really having a lot of material. You're going to have to be doing homework problems. You're going to have to be doing extra resources, reaching out, going to office hours. So it is a lot of time. But again, don't kill yourself studying, because then you're going to be fried by the time the exam comes and you're just not even going to realize what's going on. And again, it goes back to my first point where I mentioned don't study the week leading up to the exam. Just kind of review final last minute things, last minute questions. Because I say this because if you don't pass the exam and you fail it the first time and you studied, as hard as you possibly could, you fried your mind out, then you're really going to get psychologically in this trap where, you think I studied as hard as I possibly could and I didn't pass. So then you're really going to be in a tricky situation where mentally you're not going to be able to really get back up to that level, and you're just going to think, man, am I not really cut out to be a good engineer? Does this define me as an engineer? I know that's a very big thing, especially if not passing the first time or the second time, is it starts becoming a mind game because you think, wow, I studied really hard this time and I didn't pass it. Or vice versa, you think, oh, I didn't study that hard this time, so I'll just study harder next time. But it's definitely a mind game the first time you take it. If you studied very, very hard for it and you weren't able to pass it, then it starts kind of becoming this game where, am I even cut out to do this? Am I going to be going, is it going to be harder the next time? How did everybody else do compared to me? Or what should I have done better? So study for the exam, but don't overkill yourself and don't put too much pressure on yourself. An exam like this doesn't make you a good or bad engineer one way or the other. If you pass the exam, it doesn't make you the greatest engineer. And if you fail the exam, it doesn't make you the worst engineer. It's just another supplemental exam. It's just a licensing that's really just, again, a standardized test that a lot of people take. So it's one way or the other. You couldn't just not be a good test taker for that matter, and you end up failing the exam. So with that, I hope you enjoyed the video. Again, be sure to leave any comments that you have in the comment section below. I'm definitely glad to make videos, start rolling back into the videos here in 2021. So if you have any video suggestions as well, be sure to leave them in the comment section, and thank you for watching.